These new documents show that she sent 150 pages worth of emails about Burisma.
These are patriots. They're people like Marie Yovanovitch.
Here's an honorable, patriotic American.
Yovanovitch, who risked everything, had nothing to gain.
Ambassador Yovanovitch has been a real hero to her colleagues.
Ambassador Yovanovitch, our hero.
Yeah, she was full of it. And this is a woman who's highly regarded as an intelligent woman. She's Princeton educated. She's someone who I don't believe actually didn't remember. When I was pressing her for additional information beyond the press reports, what else does she know about Burisma and Zlochevsky? And all we could get back is, I don't recall. I just don't buy that. I think what you're essentially seeing is a whitewashing attempt from that moment she arrives in August of 2016 to when Vice President Biden goes to Ukraine in January of 2017, as John Solomon, working with Citizens United, produced all of these different documents between emails, meetings, discussions. There's just no way that she showed up at that impeachment deposition under oath actually not remembering any of this.
What we have are a group of witnesses who gave us a false narrative, and it takes months after Adam Schiff presents his evidence for we in the media to get the truth, to dig it out. Everything about the Schiff show is falling apart, whether it's Russia or Ukraine.
Americans are seeing the double standard. They know that if Marie Yovanovitch was there to remove President Barack Obama from office, that you would have many of these same mainstream media outlets calling for there to be a perjury investigation into her, but instead they'll fact check all this and claim that nothing that she said was dishonest, protecting Clapper, and we're seeing with power.
In recent days that President Obama was specifically directing this. We now know at the very least Vice President Biden was in this up to his eyeballs. And how unusual is this that the entire upper echelon individually, it wasn't like one request for this, there were dozens of requests. Almost everybody in President Obama's top circle wanted to see this and wanted to listen to this conversation. But this is troubling because this isn't about national security. This is about eavesdropping on your opponent and eavesdropping on the new president's top advisors. So this is very, very troubling, and this was being led at least by Vice President Biden, if not the president. And this sounds like they were abusing it to go after a political opponent, which I think is a very serious offense and should be investigated. And the fact that Vice President Biden is directly involved with unmasking a political opponent, think about it. You remember we went through this thing called impeachment? They said that President Trump was using the government to go after a political opponent. This is Vice President Biden using the spying powers of the United States to go after a political opponent. He's caught red-handed here. Every reporter in the country now needs to ask him a legitimate question. He needs to come out of hibernation, and they need to ask Vice President Biden, what kind of person eavesdrops? Is that something that we think is a legitimate function of government, to eavesdrop on your opponents without a warrant, to illegally unmask them and listen to their private conversation? No, from the very beginning, General Flynn's been treated very poorly by his country. A guy who served 33 years has been treated very poorly, but this is an abuse of power that should not rest, and it should make every American worry that if Vice President Biden were elevated to the top office, would he again use this kind of power on political opponents? Yes.
Would call for a congressional investigation on this entire thing.
Absolutely, and I will start with an invitation. Today we're issuing an invitation to the Director of National Intelligence, Rick Grinnell, to come before my subcommittee and to testify concerning this. And we do need to get to the bottom of this. This is potentially the largest abuse of power that I can imagine in recent history. And it goes to the heart of the question of what type of person would that person be leading the country and in charge of this amazing power of the intelligence community power.
Do you think a Department of Justice investigation is necessary here?
I think this can't be investigated in enough ways. And I'm disappointed that there have been people out there, I think, who have known this for a long time. But it took some I think, conscientious people now in government to say the American public should get to judge for themselves whether President Biden listening to the Vice President Biden listening to one of the president's top advisors' private phone calls, whether that was inappropriate. That would be a mild term, whether it was an abuse of power or whether it was a crime. And the only way we'll get to the bottom of this is to have an investigation.
Some could say that this could change the entire political race.
I think it's an amazing accusation. It is incredibly potent, and this is not going to go away quietly. But it fits into my point that the abuse of power in the intelligence community can happen with either party, any person, and that's why we should take away that power so no one is tempted to use that power against their political opponents.